hacker?
So good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for the invitation to this hackathon. I must admit, I'm quite jealous that I'm not with you actually on the hackathon. I love brainstorming, and I was involved in hackathons many years ago. And my name is Stephen Pope. I'm the head of trade facilitation at the Deutsche Post DHL group, which most of you will know by the name of DHL. And we're proud members of the Global Alliance for Trade Facilitation and have been members since its inception some 5 years ago. So I've seen the agenda that you have and the challenges you have before you: electronic payments, certificate of origin, goods control scanner, and what we will call the weighbridge. Now, all of these challenges have one thing in common: they all add to delays and costs. And this is what you're trying to mitigate. And it's not just delays and costs that you're facing. In many cases around the world where systems and processes need modernization, in addition to the delays and the costs, it's also a barrier to trade for many businesses or entrepreneurs. That being that the costs and the delays are so high that they can't meet the service requirement that they need to be able to trade, and they can't match the costs that will be imposed on them. And this is why we have trade facilitation. And we're in quite a fortunate position here. The Global Alliance for Trade Facilitation's main driver is to help countries implement what's known as the Trade Facilitation Agreement, which is agreed at the WTO Council meeting in Bali in 2013. And it was finally came fully into law in 2017 when 2/3 of WTO, World Trade Organization members had ratified that agreement. So what is the trade facilitation? Why is trade facilitation important? Well, just to give you an example, what you're doing here has an impact on hundreds of thousands, if not millions of lives, and will have a direct impact on the Moroccan economy. Any trade facilitation operation that is successfully implemented in a country stands to have a dramatic impact on lives, quality of life, and the ability of a country to grow as well. And this is what this is all about, and this is what we're all about. And the WTO, for example, estimated that the growth potential for developing and least developed countries from just implementing the Trade Facilitation Agreement was stand at 14.5%. Now, bearing in mind, this was before we had the COVID-19 pandemic. So, of course, as we've seen globally around the world, economies have taken a dip. And this is an opportunity now to help countries not only mitigate the impact, the negative impact of the pandemic on trade, but also to help those countries to recover as quickly as possible. So what is trade facilitation? Trade facilitation is removing the unnecessary barriers, often known as non-tariff barriers. To most of us, it's known as red tape, that slows down trade, increases costs, and in many cases also restricts the amount of trade going on globally around the world. And when you look at the most successful trading nations around the world, they've already implemented all of the Trade Facilitation Agreement, even before it was agreed in 2013 in Bali. So what is the Trade Facilitation Agreement? Trade Facilitation Agreement, in short, it's a best practice guide of what a country needs to do to become competitive. And the aim very much is to enable, and our area is to enable small and medium enterprises to access global markets, to participate in the global marketplace. And of course, the areas that you guys are looking at as well impacts all businesses. But what it will do is, in implementing them, is, as I've said before, will help to basically grease the wheels, so to speak, of the engine that is global trade or cross-border trade. A key element of that is digitalization. What is digitalization? So digitalization is something most of you will take for granted, but someone like me is 54. There wasn't an internet when I first started, actually, as a customs officer. So, we did everything on paper. And of course, lorries used to sit for days and days in places like the port of Dover before they were cleared. Now we're in a world where basically declarations are transmitted to customs before the lorry even arrives there. And as soon as it arrives at the port, it can go straight out of the gate because it's already been cleared. So what we're doing is we're basically reducing the volume of paper that's required and placing that all electronically, which operates much faster. If you take, for example, now we send, a good comparison, I think, would be comparing an email to a letter. So if you think of a customs declaration or border processes that are paper-based, is like sending a letter. You used to write a letter, you put a stamp on it, you put it in a post box, and several days later or even weeks later, it would land at the destination. The person would read that, and then they would write to it, and basically they would reply to you, and several days later or a week later, you would get an answer. And that's what customs declarations used to be like, except that we're not talking about weeks. We were very much talking about a substantial number of hours or days. Today, what we work on is when you send an email, basically, very often you get an instant reply, sometimes inside of a minute if the person is reading the emails at the time. And that's what customs declarations are all about, is you transmit documents electronically. The customs officers can actually, or the border agencies can read that electronic data, and they can reply as quickly as possible, which reduces the not only the delays, but also the volume of paper, which of course has an impact on the environment as well. Now, digitalization comes in a number of forms, and I see one of the areas around this is electronic payments. Electronic payments are a proven successful way of transacting at borders in paying duties and fees that are required. The good thing is that when things are done electronically, it's basically your computer tells you how much you've got to pay. You transmit that money to the bank account of the agency, the government agency, and off you go. Sticking with paper and obviously checks and money not only delays things, but it also has a risk of lack of transparency and fees. And I'm talking about globally now, not just talking about where you guys on the hackathon, but it also creates a security issue as well. I remember in one country I worked in previously where we were actually working on electronic payments. The customs administration had to hire a security van every day, which would take hundreds of thousands, if not millions of euros, to the bank every evening. And of course, then you're also restricted by the people were restricted by the ability to gather cash and pay it over. So of course, doing it electronically, it's like, it's the world works electronically today. You have transparency, you have speed. And one of the key elements of all of this in digitalization overall is the position that we stand in today with the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm sitting here in Germany at the moment, and we're on lockdown. So our ability to conduct our everyday lives has been heavily restricted to reduce the contact between the citizens of Germany, and this is all over the world at the moment where the pandemic is rising, and reduce the spread of the disease. One of the key elements that we have seen in this year has been those countries that have digitized their processes have been able to cope much more easily with dealing with the import of personal protection equipment, what's known as PPE. But more importantly as well, it's protected the health and well-being of the officers involved or the officials involved in the border, and import or exporters, freight forwarders, and all those involved in the border transactions. Putting everything digitally means that they don't have to come into contact and obviously minimizes the spread of the disease. One of the key areas we're looking at as well is, trust around the change of culture, moving from paper to what's in front of you digitally. And when I first started, customs was about command and control. It wasn't very much about facilitation. It was collecting duties and taxes, looking for contraband, illegal goods, for example. And then we evolved into a position where we had to facilitate trade as well. So we were introducing risk-based approaches to the controls that we had. And we needed to move to a digitalized world and accept that digitalized world. And one of the key areas that we're working on, and my company is currently working on a trade facilitation program at the moment in Morocco, actually, on blockchain. And blockchain brings one key advantage, as those of you know how blockchain works, and I should imagine a lot of you do. It's the ledger-based approach, and the independence of the people populating that ledger means that unless everyone conspires together, the information that's presented to the border agency should be trustworthy. So the border agency receives information from the shipper, the buyer, the seller, the financial information, and the documents that the shipper or the freight forwarders received as well. And as long as the description of the goods, the weight of the goods, and the value of the goods all match up, it builds trust within that system. And this is something that we're working on, as I said, at the moment, in the fact that you can use this ledger and start trusting it. And of course, one of the main things is it gives you an immediate overview of the whole transaction, minimizing the time that it requires to actually verify transactions, imports and exports, and assure the veracity of the information that's being presented to you. There is another social element to trade facilitation, digitalization, and that is the impact on women and female entrepreneurs. Equality is a key element of what we do. It's driven very much as part of our work, and it's a key priority for the Global Alliance for Trade Facilitation, is the role of women in trade. And we want to see more women trading. And digitalization offers a greater opportunity for female entrepreneurs in the trading world. Sadly, around the world, and I'm not talking about here, but as I say, it's a global problem, women face a disproportionate impact of corruption. Very often the bribes are higher that are imposed on women. Women suffer harassment at the border, sometimes sexual harassment at the border. And the digitalization removes that. The digitalization enables that female entrepreneur to know exactly how much they pay, giving them certainty, being able to pay what's required electronically, and importantly as well, keeping them out of harm's way in terms of personal contact. So digitalization has a huge impact on the ability for female entrepreneurs to be able to trade as well. Now, going back to what you're doing, is it's businesses that trade, not governments that trade. But we need rules by which we can trade, and we need to understand the motivation of the business community as well as government. And public-private initiatives are key in the way that we do this. Now, the Global Alliance for Trade Facilitation is a public-private partnership, as you will be aware, with the 6 donor countries and public sector steering group members like Deutsche Post, DHL, UPS, Fiat Chrysler, Maersk, or Walmart. And we play an equal role in implementing trade facilitation projects and programs, including advocacy as well as operational piloting of reforms, and then moving into evolutionary ways of finding answers to solutions, which is bringing outside experts or broad thinkers like yourselves into something like a hackathon, looking at the problem from a completely different perspective, working together, collaborating together to find innovative solutions to the problems that are being faced. Public-private dialogues are key to the success of trade and the key to the success of the business community understanding what the motivations are for for governments to ensure that they collect the right amount of tax that they're due, that the borders are protected from any risk from contraband or health and safety issues. But then on the flip side, that the government agencies are aware as well of what the motivations are for legitimate trade and the need to understand to make trade, cross-border trade, as simple and effective as possible. Trade facilitation is a key determinant in economic growth, and it's a great way of becoming an inclusive member of driving that growth in an economy, particularly when you can facilitate small and medium enterprises. And this is a key driver for us. And so what you're doing here and what you're looking to do in terms of turning your ideas into reality, at the end of the day, will have a major impact on the outcomes in that country and Morocco's ability to become even more competitive, to reduce costs and delays. And as I mentioned earlier on, a subsequent reaction to that will be that there will be more trade. If it's easier and more cost effective to trade, more businesses, legitimate businesses, will join the party. And then finally, I think the key element is around digitalization, is customs and border agencies only have limited resources. What digitalization enables the administrations to do is to target their resources where they're really, really needed. And they will be needed. Just digitalization doesn't mean that the jobs aren't needed. It means that they can be more effectively applied. It means that the agencies can focus on the areas that they really need to, which have an impact in terms of risk or assuring the border security, which enables legitimate businesses to go about their daily lives, helping that country to grow, adding employment, and basically increasing the access to the global market, bringing more developed and least developed economies to the global marketplace. So that's my short overview. I wish you as much success as possible. As I say, I'd love to be involved with you. I love brainstorming. But if any of you have any questions, please fire away. Do we have any questions? I don't know if there's possible, but I don't know if anyone has a microphone where the hackathon is taking place. If someone doesn't want to write it in, by all means, they can just basically put their hand up or just ask via the microphones. No problem.
Well, I guess, Steven, they're pretty shy. They're not asking questions right now. But I really do want to thank you for this inspiring talk. It was really, really interesting. And I hope it gives a lot of info and a lot of output for them to create their project and to enrich their solutions. So thank you so much for your time and for talking to us this afternoon.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I wish you all the best of luck. Have a lot of fun doing it, and I look forward to seeing the outcomes of the hackathon. Great idea. I'm sure it's going to be fantastic. So thanks very much. I wish everyone a happy holiday and a happy 2021. Or do you have a question?
Yes, yeah, I just lifted my finger. There's somebody asking, Hello, could you please tell us on the blockchain project with Morocco? Thank you.
Yeah, certainly. It's a project we're working on at the moment with the German Development Ministry, and it's for e-commerce, funnily enough. And it's B2C. And basically, what it's designed to do, it's an import program working in collaboration with the Moroccan customs. And what we're doing is we're using blockchain to help customs to identify tax fraud generally around undervaluation of imports from businesses to consumers via e-commerce. It was a challenge that the Moroccan customs have faced, and we came up with a blockchain solution which we're piloting with them at this moment. Now we intend for that to roll out to other countries, excuse me, as we go forward.
Well then, thank you. Thank you so much. Now it's good.
No worries.
um, I guess all the questions, the unique question was asked. So thank you again. I wish you a very happy end of the year and looking forward to 2021. And I'm sure you do the best as well. So wish you Merry Christmas.
Thank you, you too. And I look forward to us piloting and implementing the reforms that you guys come up with in the hackathon. Take care, everyone, and stay safe. Bye-bye.
Bye.